This TFMR podcast is brought to you by your friends at JM Bullion. Visit jmbullion.com for all your gold and silver bullion needs. Welcome back to your TF Metals Report podcast highlights for the week of Monday, March the 20th, 2023. Very volatile week in the precious metals, coming off a weekend that saw a wipeout of Credit Suisse. We had the FOMC meeting ahead. All kinds of stuff was going to take place this week. And every single podcast was going to be interesting. We know that. Beginning on Monday, one of the charts we took a long, hard look at was a chart of the dollar index. As you know, a falling dollar index can be good for COMEX gold and silver prices. And on Monday, the dollar index was trying to hold above its 50-day moving average, but also important horizontal support at the 103 level. If it were to fall below both, that would have positive implications for the metals. And so that was just one of the charts that we discussed back on Monday, March the 20th. All right, here's the dollar. This is probably the most interesting thing. Again, I expect the dollar probably try to bounce back tomorrow. However, where it spent 4 days last week, or actually every day last week, trying to hold support of its 50-day, it's closing below its 50-day. I got 103.30, the 50-day moving average on just the spot cash dollar, 103.44. The key level, as you can clearly see, is 103. Okay? I would be surprised if we took out 103 tomorrow. In fact, I would rather we didn't. I would much rather we take out 103 by falling sharply as Powell is speaking on Wednesday. But we'll certainly watch it. The 50-day moving average, that key short-term technical indicator, is also a focus of our attention on the silver chart, at least as it pertains to the front month May contract. Back on Friday on the Globex session late in the day, price surged above the 50-day moving average, and then it held above through Monday and Tuesday, using that level as support. Does that indicate that by later in the week, prices will be surging? Well, that's something we discussed on Tuesday, the 21st. COMEX silver, I printed this 2247. Like I said, I think I've got a last of 2252. The 50-day 2250. So, holding support, if you ask me. There is still, especially with where gold still remains, all kinds of room. Gold still, well, it was. Now it's back down, but still back to where it was in February. Well, back in early February, silver was 24. So there's all kinds of room for silver to pop, and it may pop tomorrow. I haven't given up yet. Wednesday brought the conclusion of the latest FOMC meeting. Yeah, they hiked another 25 basis points in the face of a banking crisis. We're going to have to deal with that as we move into April, that's for sure. But in response to Powell's relative dovishness and the expectation of rate cuts, beginning perhaps as soon as June, gold responded. Got back almost all of its losses from Tuesday and began to set its sights perhaps as high as 2,000 for later on in the week. So that daily gold chart was something we took a long, hard look at on Wednesday, March 22nd. Okay, then here's a little longer look too, just as we wrap up. This is the April gold. All right, this is going all the way back to last year. Okay, chart looks a little wonky, wanky, whatever, on the left because, you know, in April, May, June, July of last year, there's just not much volume in the April contract for this year. You know, it's all in August and October and December. So that's why the chart looks a little funny until you get to about August or September, and then then it starts trading enough during the day that you actually get real candles. Anyway, you can see the triple bottom. You can see it get up through the 50-day, fight to get above the 200-day, and then soar, then get pulled back, falls back below the 50-day, double bottoms like we were expecting and hoping, I should say, just above the 200-day. And now soaring back up through the 50-day, the 50-day turning higher. Doesn't this look? Remember I just told you about how healthy that dollar index chart looked first half of last year? Sloping higher, above both the moving averages, which are both turning higher and moving higher. Yeah, this looks pretty good, doesn't it? Our always free and publicly available Thursday Conversation podcast this week was with my old friend Dave Kranzler. Dave used to work for a company called Bankers Trust, which was eventually bought out by Deutsche Bank. And Dave's been following that story for the last 20 years. So the conversation this week begins with a discussion of Deutsche Bank, which is all in the news here as we close the week and will be in the news over the weekend. But Dave also talked about the problems facing the entire banking sector. And one of those issues that is looming is the commercial real estate and the commercial mortgage-backed securities that many of these regional U.S. banks are carrying on their balance sheets. Be sure to go to the TF Metals Report homepage, tfmetalsreport.com. Click on the link for the Thursday conversation with Dave Kranzler and listen to the whole thing. It's only about 25 minutes, but I can promise you it is worth your time to listen sometime this weekend. Here is just a brief snippet, couple of minutes of what Dave and I discussed over the course of that call.
Commercial real estate is just getting annihilated. I mean, the best way to measure that is Vornado, right? I mean,
we've been talking about, I want to remind everybody, remember we've been talking about that here. We've looked at that chart a number of times in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people, that's that REIT that we could track back 30 years, came out at $20 a share or whatever in the early 90s, went to 100 a couple times, and now it's what, 14?
It's below 14 now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone from 46 at the end of March 2022 to now 13. And I mean, I actually, the other day I looked at the composition of what Vornado's invested in, and I mean, they're concentrated in New York and San Francisco, and there was one other big city, I don't remember which one, but I mean, that's just a complete reflection of the degree to which big city commercial real estate is distressed. I mean, there's always been a huge oversupply of capacity in office buildings, and then what happened during the pandemic and the sudden movement to work from home, I mean, that pretty much, to me, put the final nail in the coffin on a lot of commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. And it's not just office buildings, right? It's also big shopping malls too now,
strip
too,
malls.
right? Because you look at J.C. Penney's. I mean, gone. Bed Bath and Beyond, soon to be gone. Bed Bath and Beyond occupies a lot of real estate in suburban shopping, shopping malls.
They're like the key anchor tenant in a lot of strip malls and things like that.
Even some big malls, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and the thing is, I looked it up the other day. You interviewed John Titus, and that was, if people in your audience haven't listened to it, I mean, don't let the weekend go by without listening to it. It was a great interview, and obviously, I have the utmost respect for John. I've known him for over 10 years, and he's an incredibly bright mind.
Yeah, he is.
But when you asked him about commercial real estate loans, he said, he hasn't really looked into that. So, he can be excused. He said it's not that big a market. And I went and looked it up. And I'm like, and I emailed him. I'm like, John, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association of America's latest publicly available quarterly report, I mean, this commercial real estate loan market is 4.6 trillion, of which these regional banks own about 75% of that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. Oh, God. And on Friday, March the 24th, it looks like both COMEX Gold and COMEX Silver will paint big old green candles on their weekly chart once again, with COMEX Gold flirting with the $2,000 level, the highest weekly close for the nearby front month contract ever is 2010. So we're within sight of that. May not come this Friday, but it's definitely coming sometime this year, as the Fed now is fully pivoting toward rate cuts. Fed fund futures market pricing in as many as 4 rate cuts this year. This is all stuff that we wrote about in our macrocast back in the first week of January. And it's all playing out. A lot of folks thought we were crazy. Oh, there's no way. Fed higher for longer. Wrong. It's certainly not going to work out that way, and it's going to be very bullish for both the metals and the mining shares. So please consider joining TF Metals Report. This is the time that you need as much independent and objective information as possible. It's only $15 a month, so go to tfmetalsreport.com/subscribe, and you'll find out more details. Give us a try. I think you'll find access to the TFMR community is even more valuable than these charts and the analysis that I provide every day. Get ready for a very busy week next week with the April COMEX contracts going off the board, option expiration as well, end of the month and end of the quarter next Friday. It's going to be volatile, so please keep an eye on the markets and then come back next Friday for another edition of the TF Metals Report podcast highlights.